Narcissists are religious fanatics. They are members of a very special religion. This religion has one God and one worshipper. And it's the only religion in the world where the God is the worshipper. But the inner experience, the emotional correlate, the cognitive aspects are utterly identical to a religious experience. Let us try to understand why. It's my favorite topic, so I don't care if you're not interested. To live with a narcissist, to be with a narcissist, is to be a member of a cult. The narcissist is the leader of the cult, and you are the member. The narcissism religion is missionary. The narcissist is trying to convert you to his religion. What is narcissistic supply? It's to worship the narcissist. When the narcissist is asking you to give him supply, he is asking you to worship his God, him. So there is a very interesting branch, new branch, of teaching the victims to cope with narcissists the same way we cope with religious fundamentalists. I'm kidding you not. When you meet a fanatic Muslim, or a fanatic Jew, or a fanatic Christian, instinctively you know what not to say. Yes? You will not mock Muhammad unless you are Danish. You will not attack God in the presence of a fundamentalist Christian. Jesus. You will not attack Jesus in the presence of fundamentalist Christian. So you know intuitively, instinctively, no one told you, but you know what not to do. You know what not to say. And if you are inside the church, or inside the mosque, or inside the synagogue, you definitely know that some things are never done, some things are never said. Well, when you live with a narcissist, you're living with a religious fundamentalist. Some things you never do, and some things you never say. You never challenge the God of the narcissist, which happens to be the narcissist. You never challenge the attributes of that God. God is all-knowing. God is all-powerful. God is perfect. God is brilliant. You don't challenge this. It's bad taste. It's impolite to tell me that I'm not God. It also means you're delusional. I am God. But still, it's a church. So, seriously, if you begin to look at narcissism as a religion and understand that you are living with that religion's extreme fundamentalist, you will automatically, instinctively, intuitively know what to do and how to behave. How does narcissism become a religion? Why does it have religious aspects? Very briefly. The child is abused by his parents, mostly his mother, but not only, by his parents. Now, this abuse has many forms. It can be classic, sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. But abuse is any situation where the child is not allowed to separate from the parent and become an individual. So how does a child react to this? He creates an imaginary friend, a piece of fiction, a false self. The false self is everything that the child is not. The child is small. False self is infinite. The child cannot guess what the parent will do next. The parent is unpredictable. The false self knows everything, is omniscient. The child is helpless. The false self is all-powerful. The child is receiving conditional love. If you do this and this, I will love you. So the child knows that if he fails, he is a bad object. He will not be loved. He is unworthy. The false self is perfect. The false self is everything the child is not. But look at the list. Look at the list of the false self. Perfect. Knows everything. All-powerful. So seriously, the child actually invents God and the child creates a private religion. This God, the false self, protects him from the parent, absorbs the pain and the hurt, isolates the child like a firewall. The false self is the child's God. But you know, it's a very primitive God. It's the God of the Old Testament.
Tudjátok, ez egy
Very
nagyon
primitive
primitív
God.
Isten.
And like the God of the Old Testament who asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, the false self asks the child to sacrifice something. The false self is a God and wants human sacrifice. But what human sacrifice? What can the child sacrifice? Who can the child sacrifice? Himself. Only himself. That's precisely what the child does. He sacrifices himself to this new God, the false self. He sacrifices his true self to the false self. He worships the false self. But the false self is a very greedy and hungry God. Like the Moloch, one human sacrifice is not enough. This God demands additional human sacrifices. And this is where I'm happy to say you come in. You are these additional human sacrifices. The narcissist has to sacrifice you to the false self. And this is precisely why, in 1995, I coined the phrase narcissistic abuse. Why did I need to say narcissistic abuse? Why not abuse? Because narcissistic abuse is total. The narcissist's only way to sacrifice you to the false self is to eliminate your separate existence. The narcissist must annihilate you. The narcissist's abuse is not functional or instrumental. It's existential. You must die so that the false self is gratified and satisfied. Narcissists forget or have no access to almost 80%, 80%, at least according to my studies, 80% of their memories. Every minute, you are confronted with a new person, new narcissist, which has nothing to do with the person a minute before. Narcissists suffer from something called dissociation. Dissociation is breaks in memory, missing time. So the narcissist misses seconds, milliseconds, microseconds, but misses all the time. He dissociates all the time. He is not continuous. How to live like that? What the narcissist does is called, in clinical terms, confabulation. The narcissist invents stories to cover the missing parts. The narcissist says to himself, I remember picking the golf club, and I remember the ball going to the hole, but I don't remember anything in between. So let's see. Probably, it's logical that I hit the ball with the golf club. Probably. It's logical. It makes sense. It's plausible. But I do not remember it. And this is called confabulation. Very often, the narcissist gets the confabulation wrong. So people think he is lying or gaslighting. He is not. He's confabulating. Here's your problem as victims or partners. The narcissist is like the river of Heraclitus. You know, Pantarei. You cannot enter the same river twice. You cannot talk to the same narcissist twice. You do not have a relationship with the same person. You do not communicate with the same human being. Not only there is no one there, there's nobody there, but the emptiness itself is fragmented and fractured to pieces. It's like an empty, beautiful, empty palace with no inhabitants, and the walls themselves are cracked and falling down. Partners of narcissists cannot digest this. There are two things that victims of narcissists cannot accept and cannot digest. One, the narcissist does not exist. There is nobody home. There is no person there. We will come to it. This phenomenon is known as the uncanny valley. The second thing The second thing that victims or intimate partners of narcissists find difficult to accept, that to the narcissist, they are not special. They are commodities, as interchangeable as grains of rice. The narcissist is with you, married to you, has children with you, had experiences with you, told you that he loves you 1,000,000 times. How many times you made love? He cried. Intimacy. The minute you stop functioning, he replaces you. Because you are a commodity. The narcissist loves his wife, and he also loves rice. And very often he cannot tell the difference. Victims find it shattering because their individuality is challenged. So this is the first thing, ontological insecurity, dissociation, confabulation, nobody home, no one there. Sorry, before I go to the second thing. So stop communicating so hard. You cannot negotiate with a non-entity. Your agreements mean nothing because no one signed them. You are talking to him, you are talking to yourself. It's a ghost, less than a ghost. It's a pretension, it's a piece of fiction. The false self is a piece of fiction. It's a bad movie. It's a script. Why do I resemble a human being so well? How do I give this almost perfect rendition of a human being? I observed many of you for a long time. I have 190 IQ. I used it. You're not complex. You're very basic life forms. You're easy to manipulate because you have 3 or 4 basic modes. Your user manual is pretty rudimentary. Everyone feels uncomfortable around the narcissist. We have proved it in studies. People don't know that they are with narcissists in the same room and they will react with extreme anxiety and discomfort. Why? They feel that something is missing. Something is off-key. Something is imitated, not real. Something is fake. I'm telling you all these things for you to accept that it is not possible to have a meaningful emotional life with a narcissist. And no amount of manipulation will change this. The next thing you need to understand about a narcissist is that narcissists, like people with other mental health problems, they are capable of what we call paradoxical thinking. Paradoxical thinking is simply the ability to have, at the same time, contradictory thoughts and contradictory beliefs. You can't do that. You cannot think at the same time, wow, this guy is evil and this guy is wonderful. You cannot think at the same time, I believe the world is good and the world is horrible. You cannot have conflicting cognitions and conflicting values and beliefs. This creates in you something called dissonance, and you solve the dissonance by getting rid of one of the horns, one of the sides, one of the thoughts. Narcissists are flawed human beings with lacking equipment. Nothing more, nothing less. Terrified, traumatized kids who throw temper tantrums and can't perceive other people as separate from them. And so let's delve straight in. When the narcissist sees you for the first time, he takes a snapshot of you, he internalizes a snapshot, and he continues to interact with the snapshot. Blah, blah, blah. You know this from previous videos. He also photoshops the snapshot, a process known as idealization. By idealizing you, he can idealize himself. If you are perfect and he is in possession of a perfect object, then he is perfect, or maybe even uber perfect, more perfect than even you. But then gradually, life intervenes, reality intrudes, you begin to deviate and diverge from the idealized snapshot, which pisses the narcissist off. And then he begins to change the way he sees you, the external object. Mind you, the internal object, the introject, your representation in the narcissist's mind, the snapshot, the avatar, that doesn't change until very late in the relationship. But the way he perceives you begins to change. He cannot really accept you as separate from him. You are an extension, you're an organ, but it's like someone with a chronic illness who is very angry at his heart or his liver. or his lungs because they give him trouble. So when you get chronically ill with your kidneys, for example, you may develop a hate-love relationship with your kidneys. You may resent your kidneys for giving you a tough time. It's the same thing. That's how the narcissist sees you. Another arm, another leg, if you're extremely lucky, another heart. The narcissist, first of all, is likely to convince himself that he had judged you correctly when you have met. He needs to preserve his grandiosity. The narcissist never makes mistakes. The narcissist is never wrong. The narcissist is infallible. It's inconceivable that he has misjudged you, for example. So he tells himself, I judged her correctly and appropriately when I met her. My perception of her was right. My judgment of people is intact. Nothing's wrong with me. She has changed. She has changed. Why has she changed? Well, I don't know, the influence of bad friends. Her family is poisoning her against me. Circumstances. She is mentally ill or she is physically ill. The medication she's taking. Exposure to left-wing radical ideas in college. What have you. Whatever the reason may be, the narcissist convinces himself that you are being transformed, that you're in the process of metamorphosizing into another person. And so the gap between the snapshot and you, in reality, the gap between your introject, the internal object that stands in for you in the narcissist's mind, and you, this gap grows not only because of what you are doing. This abyss opens up also because of the internal narrative of the narcissist. And this narrative is about how you are changing for the worse. The second process that happens with the narcissist, his point of view, is that you constantly blame shift. He thinks you're guilty. He thinks you've done something wrong. He thinks he is immaculate and innocuous and innocent. You keep blaming him for things. You keep assigning to him responsibility and guilt and accountability. And he resents this. He thinks you're manipulating him. He thinks you're playing with his mind. He thinks that's a power play and a mind game that you have embarked on. He is bewildered. He's disoriented. You are his mother. You're a mother figure. Why are you doing this to him? And so whenever you disagree with the narcissist, or criticize something, or suggest something, or prefer, or suggest, give advice, the narcissist, or even offer help, the narcissist perceives this as shifting the blame. Counterfactually, the facts are, in the narcissist's mind, that he is blameless, that he is guiltless, that he doesn't deserve any of this, and that what you're doing borders on malice. In principle, it provokes in you profound self-doubt. You begin to ask yourself, maybe he's right, maybe he has a point, maybe I'm the narcissist, maybe I'm misbehaving, maybe I'm too onerous, ordinary, tough, harsh, strict, maybe I should change my ways. And this is how the narcissist molds you, makes you malleable and mutable. And so the narcissist casts himself as a victim. And he does this because it affords him the high moral ground. And it's a tool of manipulation. It's also an integral part of his confabulation. He rewrites his history. He recomposes his narrative in a way that casts him in a good light, and all others in a bad light. He's the angel, all the others are demons. The reason the narcissist victimizes you is that he wants company. As long as you are not victimized, you are alien to the narcissist. Narcissist wants to feel at home among his own kind. He wants to be among victims because he's a victim. So he converts and transforms everyone around him into a victim. Simply to feel at home. And of course, the clinical concept is comfort zone. The narcissist's comfort zone is among victims. The narcissist will victimize you, never mind what you do. Never mind what you do not do. Never mind how often you do or do not do what you do or do not do. Never mind if you are. Because you don't even have to be for the narcissist to victimize you. And here's the worst part. When the narcissist converts you to an image of himself, he's doing you a favor because he is superior. He is godlike. He is bringing you up to his level. What does it say in Genesis, the first chapter of Genesis in the Bible? God created man in his own image. The narcissist creates you in his own image. He is furious at your lack of gratitude. Here he is investing in inferior you. He's very close to God. Sometimes they change places. And here he is.
És itt van.
Having chosen you.
És kiválasztott téged.
Having selected you. He could have chosen anyone, but he chose you. And here he is molding you, shaping you like Pygmalion and Galatea. And how do you react? You're unhappy. You claim to be abused and victimized. You're too stupid to realize the enormous gift you're receiving. You must understand this. The narcissist is very angry at you all the time, either because you are too retarded to appreciate his gifts, which is usually the case, or if you are intelligent, you are too ungrateful. The narcissist partner is in a binary state, retard or ungrateful, and usually ungrateful retard. And so the narcissist says to himself, to mold my partner, I must resort to extreme and radical measures. Americans call it tough love. They tried it in Iraq. This is tough love. It's for your own good. You will thank me one day if you survive.